Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lamont Weber, and I have the great privilege to be today with Susan Stanfield Spooner. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
Totally. Well, Susan is a leader in the health and justice field, and as you would imagine, she's taken a leadership position during the 2020 coronavirus pandemic, as it were, and is taking a leadership position in our home province of British Columbia, Canada, and is undertaking various activities to implement that, which I'll let her describe. But I want to start with this, setting context. And that is that a report has just come out, and this is a great surprise for we British Columbians who pride ourselves on having what we think is a progressive government and a progressive frame of mind. And yet, a report just came out that many other provinces have already come out with very specific phased plans for reopening, and the government of British Columbia is silent on this point and has not come out with these plans yet. How would you, as a citizen leader, begin to urge them to come out publicly at this stage?
Okay, well, I guess in terms of context, so my perspective on all of this is that almost all of it is fraudulent. And I've been writing about this since the second week of March, maybe around the 10th or the 13th, I don't know, because I have studied infectious diseases policy around the world for the last 2 years, quite by accident, right? Because of something that happened to me. And I've known for 2 years how injurious and rigged this system is all around the world. And I've lived and worked all around the world, 12 years in Africa. And so in BC at home, I happen to be researching the corruption that goes on, and in my province, around infectious diseases and pandemics or outbreaks. That's usually what they're called. There's an outbreak. And the outbreaks are always preceded by a vaccine campaign. And so to me, this was very normal to see how these cycles have worked for 10 years. So when the corona news started coming out, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And I knew that it would happen in BC because I've been studying what the NDP government has been doing with infectious diseases and the industry of what's called biologics, injected pharmaceuticals, biologics. This is big business in BC. There's a lot of money in this industry here, and there's a lot of appointed and elected officials who are involved with this money. So BC not opening does not surprise me. They don't know what they're doing. Dr. Bonnie Henry has issued conflicting information from the beginning. Just 2 days ago, she said, everybody go outside. It's safer if you go outside. We've been told for the past 6 weeks in Canada to stay inside. It's safer. So clearly the public is realizing too, they don't know what they're doing. This could likely all be a big hoax, and they're not releasing plans because there are no plans.
Well, that, as they say, is shocking that there are no plans. You yourself are the leader of a public citizen march that gathers every Sunday around 2 p.m. In fact, you have a Facebook group called No More Lockdowns, and people can go. I think there's even a children's march this coming Sunday, May 3rd, is it? At 2 p.m. And I noticed today that in the jurisdiction to the south, the Attorney General of the United States came out publicly in support of protesters marching in protests, public protests against lockdowns. So that's in the jurisdiction to the south. What instructions do you think that officials here in British Columbia and in Canada at large can begin to take from the national public officials as to this issue, just going as to this issue, on public lockdowns? I mean, it seems like the federal officials in the USA are siding with the need to open our economies up and the need for public health and justice. And that is that to protect the public health, you need a thriving economy, and you don't need to protect people against a false pandemic.
So your question is, what do citizens do? Is that the
Yeah, I mean, why are you marching? One photograph, I was told, in your march got 3 million hits, i.e., you're garnering a tremendous amount of public support. Why do you think, why do you think, speak to us, O Muse, as to why your courageous stance in bringing citizens every Sunday to the center of Vancouver to show that the emperor of this lockdown has no clothes is garnering 3 million hits and has such support and is supported by the Attorney General of the United States?
Okay, well, the good news is, the short answer is, citizen justice works. So when you see an injustice, if you see somebody, say, hurting an animal in front of you, you would step out and you would react to help that animal, and everybody around you would. We all know what is right and wrong as citizens. We all know that. We all have that moral compass. And when you step out into the public to speak or advocate for justice, most people, let's say 99% of the people, will recognize the difference between justice and injustice. So we always have the public on our side for these kinds of issues. I've been doing activism for 20 years, and I always follow the rules of follow the policy, behave, follow the rules. In a country like Canada, we have a tremendous amount of laws that protect citizens' right. We are completely allowed to march in public every single day if we want to. That right has not been violated or suspended. So I knew right away that doing something in the public was legal, was right, and would work. The reason why we got so many hits on Twitter is because, in my opinion, and I want to phrase this whole interview from my opinion, right, is that because the media is deceiving the public, the media is intentionally only saying the public health policy, especially on a broadcaster like the CBC, which is state news, right? They are only saying one side of the story. We've lost true transparent journalism in Canada, probably, I don't know, over the past 7 and 10 years. You will not see any Canadian broadcaster remotely interested in telling our story or questioning this narrative. The first time we saw it was on Fox in the last week. Finally, news broadcasters and journalists are saying, is this really going on? And that's how powerful public health has become. It really has bought and controls the media. It has bought and is colluding with elected leaders. I call it public health tyranny. So if we saw a fire in a building, everybody would tell the story of the fire, right? What happened? Get the truth, do the interviews, everything would be transparent. But there's certain issues that are not allowed to be transparent in Canadian media. And public health, infectious diseases, pharmaceuticals, anything that is backed by this huge amount of investment in capital, the journalists are not allowed to speak the truth. They will never have an honest debate. They would never have someone like me on to be interviewed. They're sending news crews out to all of our protests. We're doing our 5th one on Sunday. Nobody has told both sides of the story. They are only reiterating this narrative that Corona is killing everybody and we all have to be in lockdown. Nobody has the guts to tell two sides of the story except for the independent journalists. So that's my summary, is that citizens have every right. That's why it's appealing. Even the police know that we're right. We have police escorts every week. They know that we're right. They're not saying that. They're not saying that in the media. I think it's baffling to them that this is happening. But it doesn't surprise me because I've studied BC politics and public health policy for 2 years. And we have major problems in this province, and injected biologics and the pharmaceutical industry has a lot of weight and lobby power on this government. Adrian Dix, who is the Minister of Health, okay, his budget is 40% of the entire British Columbia annual budget, one ministry. So he's an incredibly influential, powerful person. I would imagine he wants to be the premier one day. He's got all the money, which means he's got all the power, and he can kind of do what he likes. Him and Bonnie Henry, they can do what they like, especially if they've got the media on their side, which they do.
Right. Now, it seems that this Operation Pandemic is more and more designed around the possibility of mandatory vaccinations. And those of us who have studied vaccinations, I myself have a certificate from the Harvard School of Public Health, know that you can follow the health profile of children who have taken vaccinations versus unvaccinated children, and it's the vaccinated children who have much worse health outcomes than unvaccinated children as a population. And there are health studies that confirm that. So, what do you and your movement here in British Columbia, which I concede is very important, how are you strategizing to get this information out, that it's really the COVID vaccine and the possibility of a mandatory vaccination, which even the Prime Minister now has announced a $275 million program to develop a COVID vaccine. What are your thoughts about the COVID vaccine, and what are your strategies looking forward to make sure that this does not cause the damage that it could? I say that in the context that we have a public survey coming out of Saskatchewan where 20% of the survey of citizens of Saskatchewan say that under any circumstances they would refuse to take COVID-19 vaccine.
Oh, such a big, complicated answer. So just quickly in bullet points. I'm a vaccine safety advocate. I will tell anybody, anywhere, any time of the day to do their research and to learn. Very few people are open-minded about this. They're just believing this narrative that if you don't vaccinate, you're some sort of an evil person. They'll research the ingredients on a box of cookies for the children, but they won't even find out what's inside a vaccine. So for someone like me, it's bizarre. It's just completely bizarre. Again, we come back to the media and what is allowed to be said. So I started telling people at my kids' school, the parents, about the risks of vaccine. And this is what happened to me. This is how, again, I can say that BC is in trouble. I was told by two school principals, one of the superintendents, the PAC, the head of the PAC, 3 people in the Parent Advisory Committee, the PAC, that I was not allowed to give out any information on school property about the risks of vaccines. And so immediately, as an educated activist, I put 2 and 2 together, and I thought, okay, well, this is collusion then, because if everybody is organized around the same message of telling me what I am allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say, we know that's the hallmark of collusion. It just is. There's an unwritten rule that you are not allowed to question vaccines, and it's everywhere. But having said that, as an individual, you have all the power in the world to challenge this. You can do whatever you want. You can say no. You can refuse. You can go to the courts. There's no fear to fall into that we're all going to be forced vaccinated. There's so many things you can do as a citizen. But like, again, I said about your previous question is government, public health, people like Bonnie Henry and the media, they are all colluded around the narrative that vaccines are safe, which is a lie. That is fraud. What the media is doing in Canada is fraud. There's no warnings on ads. You will never see a journalist say, well, whatever you do your homework. There's risks. And so that's why Canada is in so much trouble, because our country has been completely corrupted around this issue. You will not see the truth. So you can't blame the average Canadian parent or mom who will allow their child to be vaccine injured, because she will never be given the truth. And she will become liable for that injury. That parent, that mother will live in guilt forever. And I know hundreds of these parents, because she wasn't told. The schools didn't tell her, the doctors didn't tell her, nobody gave her anything to read, the nurse holding the needle didn't tell her, Bonnie Henry didn't tell her, and she's in the media all the time. These products, like any product on the market, have risks, and the public is being lied to. So it's kind of like smoking. My mother was killed by the tobacco industry. We all know now, smokers know that they're dangerous because there's all sorts of warnings, and there's still 5 million smokers. People will still take chances. But they are warned, they are told, and that's not happening with vaccines. And it's crimes against humanity, it's genocide, it's the highest level of crime that's going on.
So how can people watching this begin to join in your march if they do live here in the Vancouver area? And
well, come on the Sundays, 2:00 every day. We always have the announcements. Next week is Cole Harbour. This Sunday coming up is Science World. They're big, open, easy spaces to get to. Go to the No More Lockdowns Facebook page. There's 400 people there. It's growing. We're influencing 7 other cities. I've been contacted by leaders in 7 other cities and 3 other countries who are copying us because I offer artwork. It's part of what I do, is try and spread the word. Hold on one sec. My daughter's right here. And that's the easiest thing. Some people don't want to come and be visible. They just don't want to come, right? And they're being told, well, finally, Bonnie Henry now is saying go outside, but people have been afraid until now to go outside. The marches are so life-affirming because you're around hundreds of people who believe in what you believe in. It feels amazing to take back your rights, to participate in that justice, to hold a sign, to yell in the megaphone, to demand your rights. I think we're having an impact because they're talking about us, Bonnie and Adrian and whatnot. But it's so corrupt, right? John Horgan signed the 4th emergency order on Wednesday night. So that has put us into 56 days of martial law, basically. It's unheard of. It's absolutely unheard of. But again, back to the beginning, doesn't surprise me in BC because we've kind of lost the democracy here. And I can tell you that the one final little piece, I think we've talked about this before, but I can explain it, how I really knew when I was threatened to be thrown in jail last year because of the BC NDP and their vaccine policies. And that was my big wake-up call.
Right. Now, are you and the march and other people in this movement, have you contemplated approaching some of the pro bono lawyers here, either in the civil liberties area and in other areas, and perhaps talking to them? We've got your picture, and yeah, okay. Now you've stabilized.
I know. Sorry, I wasn't able to set up the interview properly. I mixed up the time, so I'm outside with my kids. Okay, well, 2 things quickly. One is, personally, I thought that it would be better to wait until all of this garbage with the lockdowns ends, because finding lawyers, even just getting anybody on the phone right now is really hard. Yeah. And these are big, long, hard cases to win, and there's no rush, right? Justice can wait for now. So my focus is just really to take care of my family and to get as many people as possible in British Columbia involved. And people are sending me their information all the time to participate in a potential class action lawsuit to award financial damages, because so many people's livelihoods have been damaged by this, right? There was a class action lawsuit that, sorry, I'm just putting up my window here, that hit the BC province in early March for $800 million for illegal skimming that's been going on through ICBC. These things aren't new to British Columbia. Like I grew up in BC. My family's been here since the 1920s. We have a lot of big, bad corruption that has gone on here for a long time, especially financially. Carol Bellringer, who is the Auditor General, so she publishes the financials every year for the province, right? She's the Provincial Auditor General. She refused to finalize and submit her financials for 2018, I believe it was, because there was so much theft. She said she didn't have the conscience to actually close the books. And two guys, their offices were raided, and some of them are maybe they're in jail or being prosecuted. Like it's getting as bad as the big federal theft that's going on of the American government. Where is all this money going? And like I said, a lot of it is centered back to the corporate managed medical industry across Canada and provinces like BC is big. It's growing. There's shareholders. There's a lot of investment and profit at stake, and it really has nothing to do with natural health and taking care of yourself and being healthy. It has to do with profitable managed sick care, and that's what's going on in BC. We are losing health here.
Right. One final question, because I know that we're in these. We were talking the other day, and you said, "Look, I really want to reach out to the moms of the world for so many reasons. They really control the wealth. They really care about their children. They really understand health and justice." Could you talk to us about the role of the moms in the world in ending this lockdown, in bringing the world back to its senses?
Well, that's why we had organized a children's march, right? And we decided against promoting it because there were 2 arrests at our last march. We had 2 people who were targeting us, and they were performing misdemeanors, so the police arrested them because what we're doing is not illegal. Oh shit, I'm going to lose my battery. Hold on. So my previous background was television production. I'm still involved with TV, but I used to make TV commercials. There we go. I've got battery power now. And the biggest target audience for TV commercials is moms, because we control 70 to 80% of household spend, from cleaning fluids to what vehicle we're going to buy. The moms are always a big part of that decision. So that's where all the money is in society. It's in the moms' wallets. And so having that background, knowing that for the last 15 years, I realized that any form of activism should include mothers, because we make so many decisions. And we're on the front lines of this health. The sick care, the corporate managed medical industry wants our bodies. Our bodies is their marketplace. That's how they make money, is our bodies. And moms control the bodies of themselves, primarily their partners, their husbands. They're influencing their husbands' physical lives, and certainly their children. So we're kind of the last defense in all of this. We're literally standing in a line protecting our children from these shareholders, whether it's the grocery store or vaccines or whatever, it's the mom. And 99%, again, of the moms are going to protect the health of their family. So we want them to feel like these movements are for us, Get some girlfriends, put on a T-shirt, take some pictures, come to the march. Being involved with citizen justice and activism doesn't have to be some weird, fringy thing, right? It's about those everyday decisions that make our lives better. So I'm a graphic designer, and that's why I'm really focusing on design, is to get moms and people like that looking at what we're doing and going, okay, well, that's sort of cool. I can relate to that. And we're going to have a lot of moms out on Sunday because they're all reaching out now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Any final words for our listeners and for those who want to join?
Yeah, the most basic message, I guess, is, we all have so much power than we realize. It doesn't help us to sit on social media and feel like the world is a big bad place and we don't have any power and we're all going to turn into slaves. I mean, you could spend your whole day thinking that. What matters is that you get out of the house you meet people, you make some noise, you start something, you do something, because that has momentum and energy, and it will give you the hope and the optimism to actualize justice. And you can see, wow, I did that, even if it's just cleaning up a playground or getting garbage out of your local river, whatever it is. And that's why I started No More Lockdowns. I typically don't do things like marches. I'm a designer. And I thought, I'm going to get out there, and if I can get 10 or 20 people with me, then those 10 or 20 people will get 10 or 20 people, and then we'll be 400, and then we'll be 1,600, and then maybe we'll be 10,000. So the message is, do something. Get off the couch. Do something simple. Do something that feels authentic, and you will absolutely have impact. I can promise you that. And if you don't know what to do, you know where to find me, and I'll show you how.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and we really support. We at Exopolitics TV send all your support, and thank you for all of this.
My pleasure, Alfred. And just quickly, 2 more things. Other than the researching the class action lawsuit, I'm designing a book to tell this story, to create a lasting living document of what happened in March and April and May in 2000 in British Columbia, 2020. And it will be called No More Lockdowns, or will have a name like that, to record everything that happened. So there is a memory of this. And that's really important to do for justice, is to create memory. I was trained by Doctors Without Borders in West Africa, and what's called témoignage, which means to bear witness. And that is another way to participate in justice, is to create or make or to bear witness. And that's all you have to do, even if nobody ever knows who you are, is create something.
Excellent, excellent. And we would like to invite you back when that comes out, so you can tell us all about it.
Yeah, great. Okay. And everyone's contributing. It's going to be lots of fun. We'll be able to sell it. We maybe can raise some money and get people thinking about these issues who aren't in the movement yet. And a book can do that. So
great. Excellent. Well, thank you.
Again,
Certainly.
Sorry, and thank you for accommodating my battery and car and children and everything.
No, this is in medias res, as we used to say in Latin.
Nice.
Good enough.
Nice. Okay, take care. Peace.
Okay, thank you.